500 open tabs. I'm Hannah Hillen. I said my own name wrong.
What is it?
I'm Hannah Hillen. Okay, I'm Hannah Hillen.
And I'm Kaveh. Welcome to the show. We are back for part 2 of our 2024 audience favorites. Once again, there's a plane flying overhead as I do my introduction. So it's perfect. But you know what? I'm just going to muscle my way through it because you know what else I did? I muscled my way through one where there was a wood chipper so everybody can eat shit.
And I don't think you guys realize how hard that was.
It was.
The wood chipper one almost destroyed both of us. So.
It did. Alyssa did a fantastic job. Anyway, yes, today is going to be our audience favorites for my 2 tabs, which, unsurprisingly, number 1, coming in at way, way more than the rest of them, was our horseboy king, Nikola Jokić, which I'm not surprised by that at all.
No, it's a good episode.
It was a great episode. It was a lot of fun doing that one. People loved it. He became a bit of a meme. I sent my friend Chuck that I talk about all the time. I sent Chuck the memes that people were making in the Discord about it. And people were like, how did you end up becoming like a sports influencer?
Look, you got me to care about basketball to the point where I was watching the Olympics and I yelled, Jokić!
Yeah,
and my whole family was like, whoa.
Whoa, look at
Someone knows. Someone's not useless.
Yes.
Just kidding. The fact,
of course, I can't take credit for it because Jokić himself was just a hilarious person. So all I did was report on the facts. That's all we do here, fair and balanced. And then... Actually,
probably more so than...
Yeah, that's true.
The actual...
And speaking of balance, the second tab was the infamous, lovely, fantastic Tanuki balls. Also another favorite.
I think I laughed for an entire hour straight during that tab.
Yeah, and also
Alyssa again had to edit out a lot of my laughter. It's a good one.
So excited when I was prepping that one. I think those are probably 2 of my favorites as well. Yeah. So it's nice to see that the audience has great taste as far as I'm concerned. The Tanuki balls, amazing. So much fun researching that one.
Gross.
So much fun learning about it. So much fun looking at those images.
He loves balls.
A delight all the way through.
They both have balls in them. Basketballs and
That's
ball
true.
balls.
Call me the ball boy.
Well, have fun listening to the ball boy's favorite ball tabs.
How predictable. But again, thank you to everybody who voted. Again, as I said last week, crazy how many of you actually did vote. Very excited. I feel like half the audience actually followed through on that and did submit votes for it. So
if you guys want to be involved in any sort of voting in the future, you can get on Discord or Patreon for that.
And Patreon for it. But yeah, thanks to everybody who took the time. And without further ado, here are Nikola Jokić and Tanuki balls together at last in one beautiful podcast episode.
Have good time.
Family love you, Michael. Okay.
Family love Michael.
My tab is a New Yorker article written by Louisa Thomas, and it's titled, How Nikola Jokić Became the World's Best Basketball Player.
Interesting. Okay.
Right.
Never heard of this guy.
So I figured you had probably not heard of him. Yeah. He's a player for the NBA.
Oh.
So
nice.
I debated on this because I was like, first of all, I'm afraid of sports fandom because frankly, that's like the original toxic fandom of insane people.
It's war replacement. It's pretty much being like, we can't kill each other, so
you
we're
got the stats wrong. Like, I'm gonna murder you for like, and I'm like, I don't want to. I'm not trying to do this.
I'm glad we replaced tribal war, but like,
right,
it's still scary.
So I didn't, so full disclosure, like if you're like a sports person, like this is not for you. This is not like a sports thing. Like, yes, it is about an athlete who happens to be arguably the most, like, who's the best athlete in this sport right now. But I was also just thinking, I was reading this article and I was like, man, I feel like Hannah would just think Jokić is really funny because he's really ridiculous as a human being. And I was like, I feel like you would love him. So I was like, all right, I'm going to take a shot here. I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to try and do one that's about, so I'm going to try and explain to you his story and then sort of the context of what makes him so interesting as a basketball player without going too far into like a, you know, triple double and blah, blah. Like, I'm not going to get into like all that part of it.
Kicking it through the goalposts.
Yeah. I'm hoping that by the end of this, you're going to love him and you're going to do for the NBA what Taylor Swift did for the NFL with all your thousands and millions of fans, because you're going to start going to Nuggets games and people are going to be like, oh my God, did you see what Hannah was doing? Hannah was there. Hannah was picking her nose during the fourth quarter.
She was wearing a black dress again. What does that mean? What sign is that giving us? Is she going to release a new album of her just yelling?
She's releasing a book in October.
Oh my gosh. And
comics.
Nice plug. Thank you.
There you go. I'm always thinking about it.
Did you know I played like junior basketball?
Did you really? How old?
Yeah. I was 11.
That's so cool.
I played for the junior jazz. They call it junior jazz because the
junior
Utah jazz.
That's really fun.
And I was the shortest person on my team and I never played, but it was really fun. Yeah, it was fun because I mean, my friends were doing it and my friend was like 5'10" for like an 11-year-old. And so it was fun to watch her. Anyway, I like watching basketball and I did play it for a minute.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought you had I assumed you had, I don't know why. I guess I assumed because you've never talked about it ever. So I didn't know that you
I used to play sports a ton until the internet came into my life.
Basically never told me this, which is hilarious. This is the first that I'm hearing about this. You never told me anything.
I was on the swim team. I played softball. I played soccer.
Oh my God. Look at you.
And then I found out that you could code your own websites. And so I stayed inside after that. And I made a Lord of the Rings fan website and I never played another sport.
Okay. Well, it's good to know you've got a little bit more. You're a little bit more familiar with this than I need to be, which is good because I probably over-prepared and wrote too much for this. But
continue. I want to hear this.
As I always say, I'm like, people talk about like, oh, they're like people are explaining and talking down. I'm like, no, I'm the opposite. Where I just assume that because I don't know what's going on half the time, that I don't want somebody else to feel bad, so I overtell them because I'm nervous and I'm like, I don't want you to feel bad if you don't know something, so I'll just explain everything in the world to you, so you don't have to worry about looking dumb.
You were socialized by women, weren't you?
Yeah, right. Anxiety. Anyway,
worrying about everyone's feelings.
Worrying. Okay, so Nikola Jokić, so his nickname is the Joker, not because he's like a jokester, but just because his last name is spelled Jokic, and like one of his teammates was like, "Oh, I don't know how to say like Jokić, so you're just Joker now." And so people are like, "He's the Joker."
Jeez.
Doesn't make any sense. But he is hilarious, but not because he's joking around. He's hilarious because I'll get into it. Okay, so he plays for Denver, which are the Nuggets. Which is in Colorado.
The Nuggets?
That's the Nuggets, the Denver Nuggets, yeah.
Because of the gold or whatever.
So, but he's originally from Serbia. And in Serbia, he grew up in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in Sombor. And he had housed 3 brothers, 2 parents, and 1 grandmother.
Oh my gosh.
So he's basically just short of 7 feet tall, by the way.
Dude. Those Eastern European countries make some tall people.
Seriously, especially in that area too, like in Serbia and stuff. They're all huge. So you can imagine what that's like, having like 3 brothers who are like 6'5", all living in like a 2-bedroom apartment. And apparently their dad was also huge. I think Nikola is the tallest out of everybody, but they're massive, just like a massive family living in big men living in like a tiny apartment, but they were close. And he grew up with 2 older brothers, and they both were also very good at basketball. One of them like kind of was on his way to becoming like a professional in the States, but he came and like met some other dude that was close to them in their town, and who was sort of like he sort of was up to no good and like didn't take it seriously. So he sort of burned out like a little bit. And they're also a few years older than him. I think they're about 10 years older than him. So he basically grew up with like these like semi-professional basketball player older brothers who just like mercilessly like kind of like were big brothers and like beat the shit out of him and like harassed him.
As like an oldest, sounds about right.
Yeah. And of course, so they all loved basketball. And in this little like 2-bedroom apartment, they all played like full contact basketball with like a little indoor hoop.
That sounds insane. Okay.
It is. And I apologize. I tried looking up the names. A lot of this, it was like harder to find a proper pronunciation guide for all of them, which I usually like to do. But so his brothers' names are Strahinja and Namanja. Again, I apologize if it's wrong, but they were very aggressive with their kid brother, but they were also protective of him. Basically, like, a bunch of crazy boys. So Nikola has, this is my favorite. Nikola has spoken fondly of a day when Strahinja threw knives around his head because he refused to climb a tree during a picnic.
That's the most older sibling thing I've ever heard. It's like, I'm going to end your life if you don't do this.
Yeah. Throwing knives at his head. He's just like, man, I miss the good old days of having knives thrown at my head.
Okay.
So at this time, so he's younger. He's born in 95. So he didn't watch any, again, because we're old now at this point, don't forget. So he's born in 95. He didn't really watch any games because of the time difference, because it would have been like 4 a.m. or something at the time. But around the time that like YouTube became a thing, he became obsessed with watching clips. So he was watching all these clips of like Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, which I thought was like, what's his full name? It's Larold, probably. Larold Bird.
Larold Bird.
I think it's just Larry, but I was like I just think of like when you think of Harry, it's Harold, so why wouldn't he be Larold?
Oh, I want him to be Larold.
Anyway, so he basically watches these guys, he becomes obsessed with them, and he becomes obsessed with like studying them.
Yeah.
And it sort of starts to cement his skills in the game. And of course, don't forget, his older brothers are like, they're dunking on him. They were professionals. They're throwing knives at his head. He's watching YouTube.
He's got to dodge those knives.
He gets really good. Yeah. And he's like playing in these young people leagues, and he's doing very well despite his frame. And so this becomes a thing that's like very unfortunate, but like it's going to be a thing that they keep making fun of him for like most of his life, is that he's like, and this is the NBA, by the way. This is not like progressive politics where they have like, they're not like, they don't have very like forward thinking ideas. They're just like,
merciless.
This fat kid. Yeah. They just keep calling, every article is like, this fat kid from Serbia grew up to become a champion. Man, he was so fat, running around being fat. Why is he so fat? Every article.
Fat.
Merciless.
Poor guy.
And they're fat shaming him constantly. But the whole thing is like but this is part of what's like so funny about him, is that like he doesn't look like a regular basketball player the way you think of them, of being like shredded and big and buff. He's sort of like this weird, and like I looked at the picture of him when he was like 10 or 11, and I'm like, that is exactly how I looked when I was 10 or 11. Just
Hold on, I need to see this.
This weird, like your body fat is distributed in a very strange way. Like you haven't grown into your body yet.
Oh yeah. Oh.
Right? That's what everyone thinks.
He was just an awkward big kid.
Yeah, he's just an awkward big kid. But he's really good at this time. Like it's the one thing I keep seeing like in all the articles that people are like, he's a high IQ player. So it's like he's probably a little bit more cerebral than everybody else is the way they're playing. So it becomes interesting because he's somebody who ends up sort of compensating for the fact that he's not like jumping 10 feet high like Jordan and like flying. And he can barely and he like runs out of breath. So he has to sort of use his head the way he plays. So it becomes really, he develops these skills. So this is the part that you're going to love. So around 13 or 14, right? He's balling. Things are going well. He's starting to get noticed and he's showing potential. And then one day he falls head over heels in love.
Okay.
With horses.
Okay.
He's absolutely just infatuated, like obsessed. He's the most horse girl you've ever seen in your life. Just
the absolutely loves them.
He's the biggest horse girl.
Wait. Okay. All right.
It becomes this obsession. Yeah. Okay. So I'll tell you what it means. So it becomes this obsession where he loves horses, and it's not like he's not just like, oh, I want to go to the track and like race them. He's like obsessed. He's like, no, dude, like I want to take care of them. Like I want to scoop them, like scoop their poop up. Like I want to brush them. Like just loves horses. Like has bonded with them in this way. Yeah, he's sort of like this big sweetheart.
Oh,
And this is my favorite quote. And they ask him, they're like, what do you love so much about horses? And he goes, I like the smell of them. The best feeling ever is when you feed them.
that is the purest thing I've ever heard.
I know.
It is the best thing ever when you feed a horse.
Yes.
They're so happy.
So
I love this man.
He's a horse dad, like a horse rent, like a shoe rent. I don't know, like what? Like
Horse dad.
a hoof rent.
Horse dad.
Horseshoe.
He's a hoof boy. No,
Hoof
that
boy.
sounds like
That
it could
does
be
sound like a weird
something
sex term.
else.
He's a horse dad. Let's just call him that.
He's a horse dad.
He's a horse dad. He falls in love with horses, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't care about basketball now. Like, bye."
What?
He like hangs up the Jordans.
No. What?
And
He
like,
Hayden Christensen's it?
Christensen's it. He's like, I'm going all in on this horse thing. I don't care. I just want to like take care of these horses. I want to like clean up after them, make sure that they're happy, feed them, be with them, race them, whatever. And his dad is like, dude, you're like this like amazing basketball. You can't just go be with horses. Like you could be like in the NBA. Like, what are you doing? And his brothers are like, are you insane? And he's like, are you insane for not loving horses? Yes, I think so. He's like, have you pet a horse? Have you fed them? It becomes this whole thing. It becomes this whole thing back and forth.
And he's like
and
14, right?
Yeah, he's like 14 or something around this time. Yeah.
Sweetheart.
And so his dad eventually just comes up with this plan. He's like, okay, listen, Nikola, I'll make you a deal. If you become like good at basketball, if you keep going with it, you can make a bunch of money and then you can buy your own horse. And he's just like,
good money can be exchanged for goods and services.
Goods and services. Yeah. So he's like, you son of a bitch, I'm in. I'm going to play basketball so I can buy horses.
I can become the best basketball player of modern time so I can buy.
Yeah. Yeah. So in my opinion, I think this becomes like the crux of his entire career is this bargain that he makes with his dad. And the way he thinks about basketball, it's almost like he's just like a blue collar guy who wants to just buy horses. Like he has a regular job, which is a basketball player. So it's sort of like, okay, I'm a barista during the day. And then at night, I'm going to like work on my writing and my stories. Or like, I'm going to be a bartender at night so I can like be an actor during the day and pursue my passion. So
I'm
this
going
guy's
to be
like
a professional basketball player so I can have horses.
Literally, yes.
I'm sorry. You were right. I love this person. This is all I needed to hear. And you know what? I don't like horses, but I love that he loves horses.
But you love that this is what I figured. I was like, whether it's cats or horses, but I'm like, there's something funny about this where he's like, it's just very endearing.
Yeah.
So, but it gets better. I usually say it gets dumber, but with this guy, it gets better. It gets more fun.
Oh.
So he comes back to the game and he's playing again and he's real good. And he gets recruited to the Mega League in Serbia, which is like a big deal.
Yeah.
And he starts playing with some of the best kids in the league and he's good. But he's a good player. He's a smart player, but they notice that like he gets tired very quickly and he kind of wipes out like after the first quarter of these games. And they're like, dude, he can't do a single push up. He can barely jump. Like, what is happening? What is going on? Why is he so like, there's something that's incongruent. It's not working out. And so they do this investigation, the coaches do. And they're like, why is he so sluggish? And it turns out our boy was, there's this thing called burek, which is a Serbian pastry. So it's sort of like spanakopita, where it's sort of like phyllo dough and like, but it's got like meat and cheese and all this. He was just going to town, just
housing
him. And these things are like calorically dense. And he was eating those and then drinking sometimes up to like 3 liters of Coca-Cola in a day.
Oh, no. His bones are probably like brittle.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And granted, he's big. He's like, I don't think he's hit his full growth spurt, but he's still very large. But even for like a large boy, that's a lot of calories.
He's living the life I want.
Exactly.
That's all I want.
They sort of intervene and they're like, okay, like you need to kind of scale it back. And he doesn't quite break the habit right away. And it becomes like this meme with him where they're like, maybe you need to scale back with the Coca-Cola. Like I've seen a lot of people online where they're like, it's game day. It's time for me to make burek and eat that because he's playing.
That's really sweet. Okay. Oh my gosh.
So again, I'm projecting, but he's just like, listen, you got to stop eating the burek and drinking Coca-Cola so that you can become a great basketball player so you can buy a horse. So he's just like, I gotta put this aside so I can move forward.
He doesn't do it for the basketball. He does it for the horse. Yeah.
Absolutely not. And this is my other favorite story is that he gets really good. And in 2014, he gets drafted. Now, obviously, I'm sure you've heard like the draft. Anytime there's a draft, whether it's like football, basketball, whatever, it's televised. It's this big deal.
Oh, yeah.
And depending on when you're drafted, I don't know if you're being facetious or not. Again, I can't tell. I tend to like over-explain to people. Like, you don't know this. Okay, good. I don't want to over-explain to you if you already know.
I knew about drafts, but I didn't know that people were like watching it on TV.
People get like super into it.
Wow.
Because all kinds of like deals can happen last minute and they get switched around. And so it's like ranking and then trade. Anyway, it's like a big gambly big thing.
Kind of feels like a market.
Kind of, yeah. It's literally what it is. So in 2014, he's drafted, but he's not drafted like number 1 or number 10 or number 20 or number 30 or even number 40. He's literally drafted 41st in the league. So not just nowhere.
No.
Basically, like by the time his name comes around and they're announcing it, and again, the draft is televised, they have to cut to commercial. And they cut to commercial, and it's a Taco Bell commercial for the tortilla filled with delicious beef, chipotle sauce, cheese, and rice. The quesarito.
Yes. I just got so excited that was this Taco Bell's involved. I love this whole story. The Taco Bell quesarito.
So I'll show you the graphics. So it's literally like they're showing the ad for the quesarito, and then like on the bottom of it, like they're like, by the way, Nikola Jokić is drafted by the Denver Nuggets, like in this little tiny crawl on the bottom of the screen. So here's put it up on the screen.
So it's a quesarito, and underneath it is the little bar that has like his name and Serbia and like the draft stuff. This is amazing. If I were him, I would be like, yep.
Yeah, no, okay, so if you're him, you're like, you'd think, a normal person would be like, I'm very upset, like I've been dishonored, like all this stuff. Nope. You know why?
Why?
Because he's asleep. Because he's in Serbia. And he's like, I'm not staying up for the draft. I'm going to go to bed. I got to go like play with horses in the morning. I don't have time for this. So there's a story of his brother like calling him and just being like, dude, you got drafted for the Denver Nuggets. Aren't you excited? He's like, huh? I'm asleep, and just sort of like hangs up. Speaking of another marketing campaign, if they ever bring back the quesarito, if Taco Bell does not like recruit him to be the spokesperson, that company needs to be shut down forever, because they are the dumbest idiots of all time. This is like no pun intended, a slam dunk. This is a layup. This is the easiest thing. They should bring it back just to have him be the spokesman for it.
Or the sportsman, but yeah, no, you're 100%. He should ride in. He should ride in on a horse. And speak only in Serbian about the quesarito.
Amazing.
Is.
That's perfect.
You're
anyway,
in Hollywood. You could do it.
I could do it. Yes, I'm going to go. Well, I have to go to Denver to recruit him first. But so he packs up his things and he goes to Denver, which I kept thinking in my head, he's listening to Goodbye Horses as he's leaving.
Okay.
Anyway, he's playing Goodbye Horses. He's sad, but he comes with his brothers and his girlfriend. And they move to Denver and they repeat the cycle. They get like a little apartment, and like all 4 of them are sort of living in the same space, which funny enough, sort of to your point of what you were talking about in your tab, like this, I think ends up being part of why he becomes like grounded, is because he's living with his family and with his girlfriend, and they're all sort of sharing the same space, which is admittedly like tight, but that's sort of what they grew up with, and like that's what they're used to. So like to them, it's just like it's fun, it's whatever, it's chaos. Like that's what makes them comfortable.
Why wouldn't you bring your brothers, who you live in a tiny house with you when you move to Denver? Yeah.
So
100%.
They're all still, I'm assuming, like throwing knives at his head every night, and whatever, beating him up, playing video games, just doing like the typical thing. So
Yeah.
it was tempting to get into like every like specific thing that happened with him and how his career has developed, but I'm gonna try and keep it brief and sort of give you a brief overview. But I think he's really interesting because and you'll see why. I think he's similar to how you and I think about stuff.
Okay.
So, of course, first there's the diet element, which he's still kind of like drinking a lot of Coke and eating like deeply fried foods and stuff. So that sort of like he teeters with that king behavior. He's dealing with that. He struggles. He eventually sort of like hits the gym and starts lifting weights and gets into it. It's a slow process. It doesn't happen overnight. So like the best of us, it's hard to let go of some of your favorite foods, especially when they remind you of home, especially when you're like a new country and all that too. But as far as like his position's concerned, he's a center. So how much do you know about a center and like what the role of a center is and stuff?
If I can remember correctly, it's like kind of a more major role, right?
Yeah,
or
so,
no?
I mean, center is you can think of it as like a center of gravity almost. It's like it's typically like the biggest guy on the team. Again, there's people who have played it in different ways and not everybody's the same, but just broad strokes of just sort of oversimplifying it is like, it's usually the biggest guy on the team. They sort of hang out under the basket because they're the tallest and the biggest, and they can sort of grab the ball and then they feed it out to other players and then they take the more long range shots. So typically a center takes the more short range shots, and then the guards and the wings are the ones that are outside around like the 3-point line and further out. They're the ones that are taking the bigger, longer shots. Okay. Vast oversimplification of it, but that's generally what a center does. So Shaquille O'Neal is sort of like the person that everyone, like from our generation, like he was the most famous center, like huge, terrible at like shots past, like directly under the basket, but
good at being tall and dunking.
Good at being tall and dunking, and his size, like,
what was Michael Jordan? Sorry, I was too into Beanie Babies to notice.
Michael Jordan was literally everything, right?
Oh, was he? You could literally say anything to me and I'd be like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. But Jokić doesn't play like a typical center. Because he grew up in Serbia, and the Serbians apparently, like when they teach them basketball when they're younger, they sort of teach them this philosophy of like, you need to play every position regardless of like what your size is. So basically it's this really interesting thing that builds on another. So essentially he's like a generalist. So he can play point guard. He can play like the forward. He can play wing. He can play center. He knows what all the different roles are and like how each one of these people play those roles. And because of that, he has become like this really unpredictable player where he's like this like 7-foot guy who will like shoot a 3-pointer. And people are like, wait, what? Like a 7-foot person doesn't do that. That's not what anyone does. And it's, to me, I think about this as like, okay, well, you and I are sort of like that. Like we're generalists. Like we don't really hyper focus on like one specific thing, but it's an advantage when you sort of know how everything else functions.
Right.
And even though you're not necessarily like the best at it, you have a broad understanding of all of it.
Yeah. It's like a jack of all trades, but with like basketball.
Yeah. No, literally. Yeah. Like all these different positions.
The reason we have this podcast is we really like a lot of different specific things, but nothing.
Listen, Nikola, if you're listening to this podcast, you are welcome to come here anytime and talk as much about horses as you want to. We would love to have you. Whole time. We'll bring up horse tabs. It'll be great.
Yeah. I'll try to like horses more. It'll be great. It'll be good.
So you pair this.
Horses. I like the idea of them.
Oh, the idea of horses, the concept. Yeah. No, I'm sorry. So now I'm about to say the idea of horses. So you pair this with, he has what seems to be some insane vision. Like he has really crazy peripheral vision and like can see very far. What? So he's like this weird Hawkeye thing that people are like, how does he see so well? Again, I see this as like a fellow person insane who just focuses on like insane person who can see and hyper focuses on everything going around them.
All the noises, all the colors, all the sounds.
All the noises, all the colors, everything that's happening on both ends of the court. So because of this, and because he knows kind of what everyone's doing and like what they're up to, and he knows like what their jobs are, he's become this like very prolific and bizarrely creative passer.
Oh, cool.
What's interesting is that if you watch him, this is the funny part, is that if you look up videos of him passing or even shooting, he looks like he's about to fall over at any given moment. Like he's so awkward the way, and I mean awkward comparatively to like, normally you'd have like, oh, Kobe Bryant like has this like perfect swish in like form. This guy looks like he's picked up a basketball for the first time in his life and he's throwing it. It's the most bizarre thing you'll ever see.
I'm excited to watch.
And it just goes like, whoop, it's like a swish. Or he'll do this like passes where like he looks like he forgot that he had the ball in his hand and like it slipped out. And then suddenly it's like on the other side of the court and his teammates like dunking it in. And it's become this whole thing where like everybody's like, what the hell is this guy doing? I have no idea what's happening. And yet like everything he does seems to be like this weird anticipation about like where someone's about to be before they even know that it's going to happen.
He's got like a superpower.
Yeah. And again, he's not like jumping high. He's not like dunking like all huge and like flying in the air. So he just sort of is like, yeah, I don't know. I'll just like throw it this again. It looks like you're throwing it away in the trash, like something like behind him. And it ends up being this pass. And it's totally confused everybody.
All he's thinking about is horses. It's like whatever gets the job done.
Goodbye, horses.
Yeah.
Sometimes he does this like volleyball tap move where somebody will pass to him and he just like swats it like it's a fly. It'll go to this other person and then that person will be like, cool. And then they'll shoot it. So what ends up happening is that he has this like crazy ability to elevate like everybody around him on the team. So now all of ready. They're all ready, but they're all like cool. Like, cause usually the way that a lot of people play in the States is like, I have the ball. Like I'm the center. I'm the genius. Like I'm the hero. I want to dunk it and take my shot and have my moment. He doesn't do any of that. He's just like, I don't know, whatever. Boom. You take this. Oh, you do this. Oh, you're setting up for this. So it's really interesting to watch this team over the course of a couple of years because they've all sort of realized that and they're like, okay, he's going to feed everybody. He's going to like take care of them. By the way, there was another article that I read that I'm not going to get into, but there was somebody trying to be like, what's the theory about like Eastern European and like Serbian players being so good and like why are there so many of that are dominant and like so good in the league? And somebody had this theory that they were like, well, they grew up in in the communist country. So like they're thinking about like the will of others and they're not necessarily thinking about the individual. So it makes them very good team players.
It turns into communism actually kind of works in that one way.
Yeah. They're sort of deferential in that sense.
Yeah. Because it's not about individuality. It's about how to lift the entire community up or whatever.
It's just like, it's about scoring the most amount of points. It's not about you being the best. Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome.
And then one more thing I'll say, this is the last technical bit that I'll talk about, but I thought this was really crazy because somebody pointed out, or I guess there's like a theory online that people talk about where they say he sort of is like a water polo player, but on the basketball court.
Oh, interesting.
Which, again, the Serbians and the Eastern Europeans, just absolute beasts, so good at water, like they dominate at water polo.
Wait,
they're excellent.
Really?
They're really good water polo players. Yeah, they're big. They have really long arms.
Right.
They're in the water a lot.
Whoa.
So, which is funny when you go and watch him, like the way he holds the ball and he palms it with one hand, he holds it a lot of times like he looks like a water polo player in the water.
What?
And so he's done this thing that he's sort of popularized. So yeah, so they're like so apparently like a lot of kids would just play when they're younger. So he probably just like played a bunch of water polo when he was a kid and it sort of seeped into his brain and he's like, oh, this is sort of like water polo. Like it's a ball. I'll do this, whatever. Fine, sure.
And it worked.
So he's like this very weirdly creative guy where he's just like pulling from all these different ways that like other people aren't thinking about. And he's just sort of like approaching it in this very like practical, like this is my job. I'm just trying to get as many points as possible to win these games. And again, a little bit of, I wouldn't say inside baseball, inside water polo, I should say. So one of the crazy moves that he does is normally when someone gets a rebound, the first thing they'll do is they'll sort of pass it off to a player that's right next to them when there's a turnover, and then you dribble the ball and then you come to the other side of the court as your team is setting up like different plays. What he does, which is very common in water polo, is like he'll take the ball and if he sees somebody on the other end, he'll just throw it one-handed like all the way across the court.
That is water polo.
Right? You've seen this before. Like in water polo players, that's what they always do because they look for the breakaway and then you come and then you fake the goalie out and you shoot. He just does that. And so it's really bizarre. It's unlike anybody else I've seen.
I want to go watch a video right now, but I can't. But I want to watch one right after because I'm fascinated to see this.
Yeah, I thought I would send you the video, but then we'd end up watching it for like 10 minutes. And there's so many. And by the way, my YouTube algorithm has been like radicalized into thinking I'm only going to watch all NBA clips. Admittedly, I watched a lot of them.
That's like me with 9/11.
Yeah, exactly.
I watched 2 9/11 clips, and now it's like, do you want to see this whole story about this person losing their leg? And I'm like, I just want to watch Ryan Gosling sing the Ken song. So yeah, my YouTube algorithm is Ryan Gosling at 9/11. So
that's pretty good.
Sure.
So I'm going to bring it back to a Hannah fun fact. Jokić seems to get scratched on his upper arms more than any other player in the NBA.
Why?
By the end of each game, his upper arms are covered in claw marks, some deep enough to draw blood.
What?
In 2019, he told ESPN, "I lead the league in scratches. I'm always bleeding. I'm used to it."
Okay, wait, I gotta look. I'm looking at pictures. What? Why? Who's scratching him?
I think he's just like, I don't know. He's just like
just tall and in the way.
Just tall and bumping into people and doing his thing. Here's my other favorite thing. So there's this guy.
Insane.
He is. There's this other guy. His name is, again, I apologize. I think it's Miško Raznatović. So he's the basketball scout that was in Serbia that brought him to the mega league. He's sort of the guy that discovered him and like kind of gave him his big career.
Okay.
So Jokić doesn't do a lot of press that much for reasons I'll explain in the next portion.
I think I know.
Mostly
it's
because
he
doesn't want to. Right. He's just like, I'm not really into this. So a lot of times the press will email this guy and for reasons that like no one can explain. And I've seen interviews with him. He's like a very like well put together, like slick, handsome guy. And he's like a businessman. He's like very cool. But for whatever reason, he responds to emails in all caps. So every time people will ask him a question, he writes it back in like half broken English in all caps. So it looks like he's screaming
or something. Yeah. Just like I'm the basketball raccoon. Why does that the only thing I could think of, like a raccoon writing in all caps?
That's how it feels. So like the response was, I have no real explanation besides the fact that his skin is very sensitive. So I'm going to go to the last section, which is like a couple little quotes from him. So he says, they asked him after they won the title, because Denver is like the top seeded team and they've been killing it. So they asked him.
Oh, are they? I didn't know.
Yeah, Denver. Oh no, they won last year and they'll probably win again this year. We'll see.
I only know about the Golden State Warriors.
The Warriors are good, but they're not as good because Jokić he's the beast. Like he just kills it every time. He's real good. He's really fun to watch.
Okay.
But so when they first got into the playoffs, right? Because normally if you don't make it to the playoffs, your season ends earlier.
Okay.
So they're like, oh, once you got into the playoffs, they're like, is it the most fun you've had since you started in the NBA? And he goes, no, I think it's actually the opposite. And they're like, why? And he said, because we played an extra 2.5 months.
This guy, it's all a means to an end. He's just like, this is my job.
All right. This is my favorite clip of him. I'm going to send this to you because you have to watch this.
Okay.
So after he won the championship and he kind of couldn't get out of it and he had to do his press conference. Actually, don't read the caption, just open it.
Okay.
So they're so before you watch it, they're like, okay, like, you won. It's like a big deal. Are you really excited? There's going to be a parade for you on Thursday. Basically, they're going to like throw a parade in like the team's honor.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And so they're like, are you excited? Like, how do you feel? So normally it's like, I'm going to go to Disneyland. Like I just won the Super Bowl, etc. But like, watch this clip. It's quick.
Okay.
So I'm curious what you are feeling right now. And if you're looking forward to a parade coming up in Denver.
When is parade? When is parade?
Thursday.
No. I need to go home. Okay. I mean,
When is parade?
Thursday.
No, I need to go home.
He buries his head in his hands. He's so upset.
He doesn't even hide that he's deeply disappointed by this news.
I have to go home to my horses.
I have to go home.
Which I'm like, how many times have you felt that exact? I'm like, this is perfect.
All the time. Yeah. He's like me. I feel like I am like a kinship.
By the way, follow up to that, he did end up going to the parade and he got drunk and had a good time, and he
good
was like
for him.
laughing, and he eventually succumbed to it. But
That's always how it goes. You're like, I don't want to go, and
I
then
don't
you're
wanna
there,
go
and you're
out.
like,
I want to stay home. I'm already under my blanket.
glad you made me go out, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Or he's a really good actor. I don't know. But there's all these clips of him being like, no. There's all these clips of people being like, are you excited? And he's like, no, I did my job. I'd like to go home now.
I love him.
He's a total meme within the NBA. So I'm going to end this story on a happy note. So to find him at his most comfortable, you have to follow him back to Sombor, which was the city that he was from in Serbia. And you have to meet Dreamcatcher, which is the racehorse that he finally purchased, fulfilling a childhood dream.
Dreamcatcher.
And they asked him about it, and he
Makes
says,
me want to cry.
he says, I buy a friend, as they ask him. And he says, he doesn't talk, but we can talk, you know?
This man is a gem.
He's a gem.
He needs to be He needs to be protected. I love him.
This is the last little fun fact. He says, when he's at home, he still cleans the stalls at a friend's stable. This man is an NBA champion, and he still cleans the stall for his friend.
Okay.
When they asked him what he'd be doing if he weren't an NBA player, Jokić said, I would be a stable boy. With the utmost sincerity.
What a solid man of the people right there.
He's great. I feel like I didn't even do it justice to try and explain like the playing, but it's really, he's so fun to watch. He's so like, I'm like, yep, he's not going to make that. And you're like, how is that a basket? How is this a thing? It's like, it's always keeping you on your toes. Oh, and then also, by the way, every interview that I watched with like people in the NBA who played with him, the first thing they do is start laughing. They're like, what do you think about Jokić? And everyone's sort of like, we don't know what to do with him. They're like, he's the strangest person.
Here's my new theory. My new theory is he's a time traveler and he accidentally stepped through a portal. And everyone's like, you're tall, play basketball. He's like, I just came from the horse stables back in 1635. What's happening? And all he wants to do is get back to the stables, realized he could make a lot of money and not die of the plague. And so he stayed.
I mean, more or less, yeah. It's all he's doing. He's motivated by something greater than basketball and glory. It's just about horses.
It's incredible. That almost brought tears to my eyes when he said that he buys a friend.
Yeah.
They don't talk, but they talk.
He's great.
Bless
anyway,
him.
so that's my sports tab.
Dude, I was not expecting sports from you, but that was a human story you just told me.
I figured.
I love him.
I figured you would. I thought you would love him. I thought you'd get a kick out of him.
Very feel good. He kind of reminds me a little bit of like, Dad, I know you're listening, but like a little bit like my dad, where he's just like, I'm unbothered. You know? Yeah. Like, I'm gonna go do my thing. And I walk outside, I'm like, where's Dad? And he like built a chair. I'm like, what? It's like my dad has a desk job and then he goes home and like builds an entire like bench or a chair. That kind of thing.
I feel like, yeah, your dad would love it. He's like, his day job is basketball and then he just goes and takes care of horses.
Yeah, does what he wants. Starts running a farm. Yeah. Wow. Cool. Thanks. I knew nothing about this guy. So I love this.
Yeah, I'm glad.
Now I can actually talk about basketball with people.
That's the other thing I figured is like if you ever see a Nuggets game that's on in the background, you can be like, "Where's my friend?" And then you can watch him play. Horse boy. He looks like
what do we call him? Hoof boy.
I don't know. Horse dad.
Horse daddy.
Horse rent. Horse daddy.
Horse daddy.
That seems a little bit different.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my tab.
That was delightful.
It was nice, right? Hello, friends. If you're like Hannah and I, you feel deeply uncomfortable asking for help. But, as my therapist always tells me, your insurance has been declined. Please stop coming to my yoga class and crying. While I'm sorting all that out, you can go to nebula.tv/500opentabs and sign up for Nebula and help us get our lives back on track. Even better, Nebula has exclusives like Identities. Two strangers appear in a mysterious room with no way out and no memory of who they are. Identities is a sci-fi thriller, directed by Jesse Earl and starring some friends of mine, like Maggie Mayfish and Abigail Thorne, as well as, and perhaps the most exciting for me, John Delancey, aka Q from Star Trek. Big deal. I had the pleasure of attending the premiere a few weeks back, and I can say for certain that this movie is a corking good time. You can find this video and dozens of other high production originals on Nebula, a video streaming platform built by and for creators. And of course, I'm contractually obligated to tell you that subscribers get a special feed to listen to this show ad-free. Go to nebula.tv/500opentabs and get 40% off an annual subscription. By signing up, you can support other creators like Lindsay Ellis, Princess Weeks, and many more. Remember, sign up at nebula.tv/500opentabs and help my therapist enjoy their yoga class without having to hear me weep. So I would like you to have your phone nearby because this is going to be something where I'm going to be texting you a bunch of random stuff. Yes. Okay. My tab is, in fact, a listener email that I decided to expand upon.
Oh, this is the second time you've done this, huh?
This is the second time. Unfortunately, it's not Nico from Riverside, although shout out to Nico. Thank you for the last time. Nico did send us another article, which I thought was cool, that I told you to not read because I saw it before you did.
Yeah,
but TBD on that one. You didn't, thankfully. But this email came from Karen in Renton, Washington.
Okay.
And Karen sent us this fantastic article. And you ready for the title?
Absolutely.
Testicular Tanuki Tales, Japanese folk humor for children with Ribald satirical twist.
There's so many syllables in there.
I'm going to explain it.
This is like reading the moon hoax papers. So many words.
So many words. This actually did spark my interest somewhat. It's nothing to do with the moon hoax, but you'll understand the places in which I thought it was similar. So this is not a joke. It comes from a blog from Princeton University, and it is this fantastic analysis. I don't say this lightly. It really is a very good analysis of a series of prints and gives them all context, both culturally and historically, so you can understand what it's about. And I was really tempted to just read the whole article, like just on the air, but I decided that I should actually just do my job. So
that's all podcasts are, just read it.
Yeah, just reading somebody else's work.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, are you familiar with what a tanuki is?
I have no idea.
You have no idea. Okay, so I'm going to send you a couple of pictures of tanukis. Why don't you go describe to the audience what tanukis look like?
Oh, they kind of look like little raccoon bears. They're fluffy.
Okay, yeah.
They've got like rounded ears. Their eyes are really close together, and they look like they're in a constant state of panic.
Yeah. So they're actually known as they kind of call them the raccoon dog. They're Japanese.
They're cute.
That's a point of contention because technically, apparently, they're neither a dog nor a raccoon. They're somewhere in between.
Weird.
So people make an argument that they're technically like their own thing. And I tried to read about the weird genetic code, Jurassic Park DNA, something or other sequencing about it. And I was like, I don't understand what any of this means. And I'm confused. So whatever. Tanuki is its own thing.
I want to go to Tanuki Park instead of Jurassic Park. Gigantic.
Wait till you hear the rest of this tab. You're going to absolutely want to go to Tanuki Park.
There's a park. Okay. All right.
No, there's no real park. But I just mean like the more you learn about Tanuki, you're going to be really excited. Okay. So Tanuki are mostly nocturnal. And when they speak, they sound like domesticated cats, apparently.
Annoying?
They are predominantly monogamous and typically live for about 7 to 8 years. To recap, a tanuki is a raccoon dog that meows like a cat, marries its high school sweetheart, and dies at 8.
Look, I don't want no slut tanukis, okay? I don't want some loose tanuki. Is that how you say it?
Loose tanuki.
Loose. I need a monogamous, dedicated tanuki, all right? Straight. Just kidding.
So, tanuki are important figures in Japanese folklore. They're known as mischievous shapeshifters that are often portrayed with comically large, stretched out scrotums.
Dude, you know what this reminds me of? And yes,
the thing you messaged me last night?
Yeah, sorry about all those chaotic memes I sent you. I looked back over them and I was like,
perfect. No, it was really funny. I wanted to respond to you because I was like, "Oh my god, you don't even know." Just so you guys know, Hannah sent me like an AI video of Yoshi from Mario Brothers with ball sacks, with giant balls. That ties into this tab.
Weird. We're on the same wavelength. And then you looked at it right before bed, and that made me really happy. I was like, I hope this is the last thing he sees before he goes to sleep.
It was.
But this reminds me of my pet rats. That's a whole different story, but I had a ton of pet rats at one point in my life. And the male rats, once they're comfortable with you, they just let their ball sack out. And it's gigantic. Like if it were on a human, they'd be like cantaloupe sized. And my rat, I had a rat named Rasputin, and Rasputin had gigantic balls.
Much like the real Rasputin, whipped his balls out everywhere he went.
He did. Yeah, he really did. So my rat Rasputin, I would call his name, go Rasputin, and he'd run up my arm, dragging his balls along with him, all the way up my arm, and then he'd nestle himself right here in my like cleavage.
Clavicle?
No, inside my cleavage.
Oh, inside your cleavage.
And I remember just being like, I could just feel that ball sack. This story was way cuter in my head. Okay. So that's what that reminded me of. So anyway, Tanukis and the huge balls.
But they're huge balls. And their nut sacks are not just for show. They're also magic. So within folklore and within the art of a lot of Japanese prints, they will use them as parachutes, chairs, umbrellas, backpacks, blankets, weapons, hats, capes, and countless other useful accessories.
Chairs? They're built in. I'm so excited.
You have no idea what you're in for right now.
I might be making a lot of like insane noises, by the way.
And according to everything I've read, this isn't some like, oh, you shouldn't laugh at other cultural traditions and be insensitive. The Japanese are like fully in on it, and they're like, dude, balls are funny as hell, and those weird raccoon dogs that talk like cats have huge balls, and like we love this.
We're going with it.
We're going with it. And furthermore,
love that.
Their testicles symbolize good fortune and wealth.
I mean, yeah.
So the Japanese term I'll tell you. So the Japanese term kintama, which means golden balls, plays into this. The most popular theory as to why is championed by a researcher named Shigeo Uwaku, who, and the theory goes that back in the Edo period, metal workers in Kanazawa Prefecture used to make gold leaf sheets by putting the gold between tanuki skin to hammer it flat.
What?
Yeah. And because the skin was so durable, it allowed them to stretch the metal unbelievably thin.
So they got good skin.
They got great skin. They were just hammering on it, and it was helping them just, kind of like...
would stretch over a door real nice, right?
Stretch over a door, exactly. It could have been tanuki balls that were on the door that you were mentioning in the previous tab.
Probably.
And so basically over time, this all got muddled up, and like people were making jokes, and eventually tanuki balls became associated with gold and then being rich.
Oh, I mean, that makes sense. Like that's the logical next step.
It sounds like something we would have come up with if we were there at the same time. So it's now associated.
History would be so much more full of dumb ball jokes if we had been back then.
It's now a sign of good luck and prosperity, and many shops in Japan will just have a tanuki with giant balls outside, and it's cool as hell. So here we go. Why don't you describe this to the people who are listening?
Okay, I need a minute. Okay, so it's almost like the style of a garden gnome. It's like a little ceramic figure, but it's got it's just this little bear thing holding a frog, sitting on its own balls, but it also has fully formed boobs. I don't know, man.
It's got
cute.
A giant hat.
This isn't cute. Oh, here's another one. Oh! Oh! Okay, so this one looks like it has just seen someone get shot. His eyes are huge and wide, and his mouth is gaping open. It's made of wood. It has a big old hat on. Still has those boobs. And this time, it looks like it doesn't even have legs. It just has balls. So, wow. Yep.
But we're just beginning, Hannah. We're just beginning.
Oh no, Karen! This is such a good tab. Oh, this one has a penis too, by the way. I didn't see that. I was too focused on the balls. Oh, he's got the eyes, man.
The eyes are particularly funny with that one. So,
yeah.
Fun fact. I know that you know a special Tanuki already. You want to take a guess as to who it is?
No.
Tanuki Tom Nook.
That capitalist bastard. He's a Tanuki?
So I didn't get like proper confirmation from I don't there's no like official like Nintendo stance on this, but I did read somewhere that the theory is that Tom Nook's Nook Inc.'s logo are leaves. Remember?
Uh-huh. Oh yeah.
And so the theory is like that's all related to this. It's like leaves, Tanuki, wealth, prosperity, all that kind of stuff. So
that guy does need to have pretty big balls to ask for as much money as he does for me to just live on that island.
Listen, next time, I know that you avoid your island because you're afraid of all the shame and guilt of everyone being mad at you, but just be careful. If you don't pay your bells, you don't know what Tom Nook's packing under those cargo shorts and what he might do to you if you don't fall into line.
Just bounce up to me on those on his giant balls. My head is so messed up right now with what I'm hearing. Like, Mel Gibson is Australian. Tom Nook has big old balls. I'm looking at something that should be cute, but it's not.
As I always say, it's going to get crazier. It's going to get crazier. So
Good.
The article that Karen sent us concerns a couple of specific prints that were made during the Meiji era, which was from 1868 to 1912. Now, until this point, Japan had very famously cut itself off from the rest of the world in an attempt to resist colonization by Western powers. I'm sure you already know about this. Many people know about this.
Yeah.
And when Emperor Meiji took over in 1868 and consolidated power, he was like, nope, no more. He flung the doors open of Japan to everybody and went hard in an attempt to modernize the country and make it a world power. They embraced modernity. They were ordering all kinds of packages from Amazon. Everyone got into TikTok. They stopped wearing ankle socks. They're like, we're the cool new young kids now.
They kept telling everybody that parting your hair on the side makes you look old and dumb. And
Exactly.
Makes
They got rid of all their skinny jeans. They just threw them into the water. They burned them. They started using cool terms. Anyway, so this period is known very famously as the Meiji Restoration.
Yeah,
and I don't know how much you know about it, but it's a legitimately fascinating topic. There's like a billion podcasts about this. I think Dan Carlin did like a 1 billion-part series, as he always does, for Hardcore History about it.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting period in time to learn about. And as far as like just Western sort of points of reference that we can use, the most famous example is do you guys remember? I don't know if you remember The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise, where he was like
it's been so long.
He was like the Civil War soldier that gets called back to Japan. He gets commissioned to come like teach them about. So it's a decent. It's like from 2003, 4, 5, somewhere around there. It's very it's from the white perspective.
Yeah, they all are.
It's a decent flick, but like it's got some problems. And I did remember reading an interesting piece of criticism about that film that went beyond just like Tom Cruise white, center of narrative, which is sort of your obvious one. But it was an interesting criticism of romanticizing the samurai class and how the samurai were like, because they were basically pushed to the side and they were like, you're not part of this anymore. And the samurai were like, we're all about history and like you're giving up on your old terms. But they were like, yeah, that was also because they liked the idea that they were sort of the class that was in charge and their station in life was being being challenged. And anyway, it's just an interesting way to like look into it and read different things about it. That's sort of all what's happening here.
Yeah.
It's very, very much worth into reading. I've mentioned Japanese history on here before. It's all really cool. And like any non-Western history, it's very interesting and we don't ever learn about it. So you kind of have to take it upon yourself to read. But the stories are really cool.
And you have to go deep sometimes to not have a white perspective or at least a Western perspective on it.
Exactly. Anyway. So anyway, at this point, like I said, Japan's modernizing crazy fast. Tom Cruise is coming in all drunk and trying to regain his honor and on all these soldiers and how to kill these pesky samurai, but he gets captured because he's bad at his job. And as always is the case in every example of countries trying to modernize too quickly, a lot of people, mainly the people who are not part of like the aristocracy and the rich class, are like, dude, what the hell? I got whiplash.
Right. Right. Poor
They're
guy.
just like, what? Bro, I don't have a bunch of money. This is not awesome. We don't like this. What are you doing?
I just want to farm. I don't know. What are we doing?
And it's always the people with money who are the ones who are super into it and they care about it.
Of course.
And like you said, they're farmers. A lot of them are just like, dude, I'm up in Shingo trying to raise, I'm trying to tend to my garlic farm. What's all this riffraff about steam engines?
Well, it's interesting because you know what does a really good job of, have you ever read Game of Thrones?
Nope.
It does a great job showing what it's like from like a peasant's perspective, where they'll just be like doing their work and be like, oh, there's a new king. Okay, whatever. And they'll just get back to their work because they don't care. As long as things stay relatively the same, it's like, you know, they're so far disconnected that it's like, and no, Game of Thrones is not real, but it is based on actual.
No, it's medieval. The idea is that like a lot of these times, these kings, kind of like you're talking about, or whatever, kingdoms or governments, they end up implementing like economic reforms that make a lot of money for the state, but they don't necessarily implement like social reforms where that money gets distributed or sort of reinvested into the communities that they're serving.
Right.
So you end up having these like bigger and bigger divides. That wasn't necessarily the case, I think, in Japan at this time, but that does at least initially end up being like, well, whatever, cool, there's a steam engine. What do I care?
Yeah. I just want to farm my rice paddy and let's move on with this.
And so people are upset and they stage a revolt, right?
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. Of course not. Much like you and I, they make snarky cartoons about how things are dumb, and they also draw animals with insanely gigantic balls, shape-shifting into stuff.
Gosh.
But like, you know, political.
No, there's no... Look, that was an excuse.
Yeah.
Wait. I love this.
Now, we're going to be laughing about these for the next few minutes, but which we're meant to be doing. We're meant to laugh at this. That's the function of them. But I just want to say up front how much I love these prints and how much I legitimately admire them, because you know what it made me think of was a couple episodes ago when we had Miles on and we were talking about the lioness upon the cheese grater.
Yeah.
And we were all laughing about like how people tend to assign this sort of like nobility to things throughout history
like
and being like very
reverence.
serious. Yeah, reverence for them, as if people in the past didn't have a sense of humor.
And as if they weren't dirtbags like us. Like
exactly. Yeah.
We've been like this for as long as we've existed.
Yeah.
Some of the oldest art is pictures of penises.
Right. Or what was it? Woman farts was the one that Miles brought up.
Yeah.
The oldest stories.
The oldest joke is about a lady farting. Yeah.
So
we're so dumb.
We're so dumb. And I say this with all sincerity. If my legacy would have been to make something as awesome as some of these prints, and somebody would like read this like 150 years later, I will have considered my artistic career a success.
Oh yeah. Same.
So,
agreed.
Woodblock print artists of this period rose to some prominence, working in a genre for young audiences known as omacha-e, which were called toy prints. I apologize for the pronunciation if it's not correct. These cheap, usually single sheet woodblock prints were ostensibly for kids, but had crossover appeal for people of all ages. And like the magazine tabloids of today, they claim to share the latest knowledge or gossip about any given subject, thus the title of these prints. So we're going to be talking about two specific prints. One is called The Latest Tanuki Entertainments, and the second one is Compendium of the Latest Tanuki Amusements. And both of these prints, published a year apart, depict an exhaustive series of variations on the theme of Tanuki Kintama transformations.
Oh, okay. All right.
So here's the first print. And just let it wash over you for a second. We're going to get into the specifics of all of this, but just tell everybody this is a reaction video. So explain to everybody what you're looking at. Obviously on the video version, people will see it on screen, but for people who are listening.
Oh, no. Oh, are these all balls? Is this all balls?
Yes.
This is all balls. Okay. So I'm looking at here's what I'm looking at. It's like it looks like a grid with a bunch of different pictures, different cartoons, and in each one, it's like a comic strip, but each one it has these guys doing something different with their balls, or even just the skin, like the scrotum. Like this one, he's using it as a hot air balloon. What looks like a hot air balloon. This one is using his as it looks like a trumpet. This one's just got one big ball hanging out of his pants, and he's banging it like a drum. This one he's using it as a shawl. He just like has it around his. And these are all Tanuki. Oh, what's going on? Oh, I don't even know how to describe that one. This one's flung it over his shoulder, and he's like prancing away with it. Some of these I don't even know. This one has like, its balls have legs, like separate from his own. Oh, this one's just wow. This one's trying to shove his ball sack into a barrel. It's massive. Oh, he's using it as a blanket. Oh, a koi pond. They've stretched this balls out and filled it with water and fish. I have whiplash. These are beautiful drawings.
I knew you'd be speechless.
Dude, the colors, artistically, these are amazing, and it's all balls. It's all a kite. This one's using them as a kite. Okay. Continue.
So remember, so the first print, like I said, it's latest Tanuki Entertainments. The artist is Kobayashi Aijiro, and it's from 1884. So at first glance, you'd think, LOL, it's a bunch of Tanuki balls and it's hilarious, which it is. But there's actually more going on here.
Explain.
So I will. So the thing is, this literally is like the Simpsons episode, like a Simpsons episode of its day, because it's making homages to past arts and artists while simultaneously skewering the political and upper classes.
Awesome. Okay.
So the artistic inspiration for these panels come from an artist named Utagawa Kuniyoshi, who lived from 1798 to 1861, a renowned Edo period woodblock artist who popularized testicular Tanuki transformations, coming up with numerous variations on the theme. So the first image I'm going to show you, this is from the artist who was from about 100 years before, from the Edo period, from Kuniyoshi.
Oh, wow. What is going on? Oh!
So let me explain this one while you look at it.
I don't know what is happening. Okay, please explain.
The image is a play on the Zen Buddhist koan, "How do you catch a catfish with a gourd?" And also the belief that a giant mythological catfish thought to cause earthquakes under the islands of Japan could only be controlled with the god Kashima if he placed a giant rock on its head to suppress it. So in Kuniyoshi's print, the Tanuki is placing its giant ball sack on the head of the catfish to stop earthquakes from coming and saving the day.
We got to implement this in California.
I agree. So
why is he also standing on top of a different Tanuki? He's just like using him as a surfboard.
I think they're just helping each other out. They're just like, I need to be like a stepladder of some sort because this catfish is so big. So in two of the panels of our first print of the latest Tanuki Entertainments.
Yeah.
If you look at it.
Oh, yeah. I was trying to figure out what this one was. It looks like he's trying to shove some...
He's putting the ball sacks on top of the catfish. So they're trying to stop the earthquakes. So it's a reference to that like old Buddhist little story.
And there's another one. Wow. This has like 5 layers of cultural, like... Right? You can't even... I would never understand.
So the artist is literally, he's giving a shout out to like the olden days. So when I think of Simpsons, I think of like a lot of those old episodes would give references to like old movies and stuff as a way of like the visual reference point or the visual language that people would be familiar with.
Or even just like the couch scene using different animations that pay homage to, you know.
That little template. So there's more references in Kuniyoshi's work throughout this print, but critically to the piece are the clothing that a lot of these Tanuki are wearing. Kobayashi is dressing them in Western garb, which implies they're members of the upper and political classes, and they have fancy jobs or have traveled abroad and are taking on the costumes of Westerners. So if you look at, you actually pointed out a couple of them specifically when you were looking.
Yeah.
The one with the guy slung over his shoulder with the ball sack.
Yeah.
That's meant to be a postman with his with the hat and the outfit, and he's wearing in the pants.
Oh, yeah.
And then the guy with the ball sack on the drums.
Yeah, that's my favorite one, I think.
He's from like a Western style marching band. And then the one with the shawl also wearing like a cool Western hat. That's just like a fancy person. So these wood prints are essentially taking aim and clowning on these people. And they're like, oh, cool, you're a postman. Have fun slinging your ball sack post office bag over your shoulder. Oh, you're a drummer in a Western style band. How about you drum on these nuts?
I'm speechless.
Amazing.
What do I say? I just saw another one, and it's this one is a boat. They made a boat out of the balls, and they're sailing away on it.
So these are just like hilarious and awesome and a million times smarter and funnier than Young Sheldon, which is, I know, your favorite show of all time. But this is much funnier.
I can't even handle that as a joke. That is... even the thought of someone maybe taking that seriously makes me want to die. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I don't want to unalive myself. Okay.
I understand. Anyway, so that first piece, it's a total of 36 different little panels. So it is kind amazing. Again, I as I always like to do on this show, I always mention shout outs to our, lineage or the people that came before us. So it's like you said, this is sort of like
right here.
The comic artist of its day.
It is. But it goes so far back, like way further back than anything.
It's satire.
Western.
Yeah.
It's satire. It's cartoonish. It's about balls, It's about
balls. That's the most important thing.
That is the most, it's all I can kind of only see that.
I think that's what you're meant to.
Yeah.
Oh, there's one more. Okay, so just a couple quick little references. So there's this little trio, like you said, there's the boat. There's the person with, what did you say? He was like fishing with them.
Yeah, like a fishing net made of ball skin.
Made of ball skin. So this goes back to Kuniyoshi. So this is the print that it's referencing. That is a heightened version of this where it looks like four of them together, or four of these Tanukis together have one giant ball sack that they're fishing with. But it's from the Edo period, so it's like the previous period of it.
This is my favorite one so far. They have all taken out their shared ball sack and made a huge fishing net out of it. I'll never do that. I'll never be as how come I never top this? I'll never top this. Oh, what's this one?
This one is...
Oh my gosh, what is happening?
It's raining, so they're just covering their heads as a way to stay dry.
Is it one gigantic ball set? Oh no, they each have their own gigantic... Okay. Wow. I like how there's like hair on them too. Like these aren't like cutesy. Like they're hairy.
They're hairy. Okay, so that's the first print that's covered in this article.
Okay,
so next up is Compendium of the Latest Tanuki Amusements by Kuniaki from 1883. This one, we'll get into the specific panels, but why don't you explain the difference between this one and the previous one for people who are listening? Okay.
First of all, different art style, but also, interesting. They're a little bit more animalistic. Like these guys are actually shaped like animals. The other ones were like humans with Tanuki heads. Mm-hmm. Oh, he's riding his balls like a bike.
Unicycle.
I gotta take a second to absorb. Hold on. Okay.
So just for people listening, both of these have, they basically have like three colors. Primarily, it's like a yellow, blue, and a red, more or less. But the second print, what's interesting about it is that I think it's funny because it's less obvious that it's meant to be skewering something. Yeah. They looks like somewhat more traditional, closer to like the reference from the previous one from the Edo.
Almost, yeah.
They look more like scenes, like almost like storyboards or something, or like proper, scenic illustrations rather than just like one-off quick graphic drawings. It looks much more deadpan, which I think makes it much more funny.
I think because it's like regular everyday stuff, and it's like, oh yeah, I just got to use this as my bike, and it's like it has a calm. It's not so like extreme, you know what I mean? It's not like look at this kite made out of balls. It's like this is my ball sack bike, and I'm going to work. That's the vibe I get. Like,
So let's focus on the one panel, which is actually the one I was going to talk about that you brought up. Which
bike?
Remember, it's a unicycle. So explain it to everybody.
So there's this Tanuki, and he's wearing what looks like a smoking jacket, and some nice white slacks, and he is operating a unicycle made of his ball sack, going down a country road, and it's nice clear skies. There's some nice bushes in the background.
There's a flag in the background.
There's a flag that has some writing on it.
So apparently, the red flag on the background of this particular scene, it says Gianiku, which means beef. So the Tanuki critically, he's wearing Western style clothing, and he's on this unicycle, and he's going to get beef theoretically.
Because Westerners love beef.
Beef, and for what critically is like most common people would have not been able to afford beef at all at this time. So
Especially
again, it's
in
this thing
Japan.
where, so they're kind of making fun of like, oh, look at this dumbass like riding his unicycle and his ball is going to get like a hamburger. Screw this
beef.
guy.
Give me a second. I'll never top this. In my whole career, I'll never top it.
We can just give up. We have to just give up. It's over.
I'm retiring. I'm just going to fully go into podcasting now. No more art for me. It's already been done.
It's been done.
I'm yelling a lot today.
So this one's my favorite.
Okay.
And
okay. What is okay. So this is a guy. Okay. This is a Tanuki and he's posing for a photo, but it looks like he's using his ball sack as something to lean on, like as a prop, as he like poses. And then there's the cameraman Tanuki, and he has draped those old timey cameras with you to put the cloth over your head. Yep. He has delicately draped his balls over his head so he can block the light from the photo when he takes the photo. And he's taking the photo. This is beautiful. And the whole air is like, look at me. I'm fancy enough to have a photo taken. And yeah, I this is perfect. This is perfect.
That is the exact reaction I was hoping to get from you.
Okay. Go on. You have to go on. I can't stop laughing. I'm so sweaty. I'm brushing my hair.
The ball sack camera has broken you.
It broke me for sure.
Listen, these are two of the greatest pieces of art I've ever seen in my life. I will never not remember these.
Ever. I mean, like.
Go ahead. What were you going to
say? You can't. I already said this, but you can't top this. Like.
So, okay. Lastly, so this article sort of goes a little bit more in depth into this. But again, shout out to our comic ancestors. But lastly, I wanted to briefly discuss Tanuki train legends because
there's trains in this?
There were train boys here.
Love trains.
I'm a train boy, Janice. There's no artwork for this, but this is just part of the Tanuki like Meiji period. So
I love a train.
I know you do. So in many parts of Japan during the Meiji period, stories emerged about train operators who claimed to hear the whistle of oncoming trains, only to find that the train would suddenly disappear in the moment of contact. And later when they went to investigate, there were almost invariably one or more dead Tanuki on the tracks.
Oh.
People essentially, and these stories continued for a while, like well into the 50s, I think almost is what I was reading. And so they were just like, oh, like they're tricksters. They're just making the sound of other trains come in to like throw off the train operators. And they sort of became like this symbol of resistance. But according to Michael Dillon Foster, who's a professor of Japanese at UC Davis, there are many allegorical interpretations of the tale, from industry versus the environment to the foreign versus the native.
I was going to say that feels like old school versus new, like
exactly
the old ways versus this new technological advance that people aren't comfortable with yet.
These tales can be read as the forces of traditional Japanese views taking a stand through the use of deception and Tanuki magical powers of old against the forces of industrial change and modernity, and ultimately, tragically failing. That the Tanuki is overpowered and killed by the train symbolizes not just the futility of opposing the advent of steam trains and industrialization, but indicates the acceptance of that futility, enshrining it in a folk tale.
I feel that.
Yeah,
I don't
very
know
much
why,
so.
But like,
you know exactly why. I'll give you one quick reference. So the American equivalent I thought of when I was reading that was do you remember the story of John Henry?
Yeah, the railroad guy, right?
Yeah, the guy who was like, there's like a digging machine that's like coal powered or industrial, and he was like, I can dig faster than you, and he's just sort of fights it, and then he wins, but then he dies at the end of it,
right?
Because like an embolism bursts in his head or something, yeah,
right.
And it's like this symbolic victory of like how humanity and people can win over machines, but still like the march of progress and of industrialization
Never
continues.
stops.
It's sort of a similar thing. That's happening around a similar time.
It's almost like an acceptance. Like it's like I'm gonna take control of this story by being like these little testicled raccoon dudes are a symbol of our culture, and it's gonna try its best to stop the train, but it will die. And at least I have the story. At least we're in control of the story. You know what I mean? Like Also, it's like a weird acceptance, like grief. It's like grieving.
Mm-hmm. I think it's really, really fascinating. It's really interesting. And in terms of modern day parallels of what you were talking about, is the thing I kept thinking about is like the battle within our entire industry and like our mind and every convention we go to. It's like AI versus people. Like, can you make art or is like the machine going to do it for you? And it's like, no, we're still good. So it's like about the human spirit versus the machine coming in and industrialization or technology.
Oh, man.
Right?
Things are about to be super different and I don't like it.
Not unless we use our ball sacks to fight the resistance.
Should I just pull my ball? No, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go there.
Last point. Pom Poko, which was a Studio Ghibli movie. Have you seen that movie?
Oh, long time ago. It's one of the weird ones that doesn't really get airtime or doesn't really...
So it's not directed by Miyazaki, but here's a screenshot from it.
Oh, this
now
is
you will understand what it is.
Right?
Oh, I don't remember who directed it.
And then it's his... Oh! Ball sacks!
I'll read you the summary. A community of magical shape-shifting raccoon dogs struggled to prevent their forest home from being destroyed by urban development. And a lot of places that I was reading about it, they reference it as sort of a modern example of the Tanuki. And so maybe that's one thing that we can watch one day on this imaginary watch party that we're never going to do. But
never.
We keep saying we're going to do it. But I would love to watch this movie. I think it's really exciting to see it.
Full of empty promises, you guys. I don't know if you guys know this. I think you all do, but...
Anyways, though, but a huge thank you to Karen from Renton, Washington, who at the end of her email wrote, they wrote a PS and they wrote PPS. My girlfriend has rolled her eyes so many times at me during the time I've been writing this email. On the clock, too, as my own small mischievous act. So she's keeping the spirit of sticking it to the man alive. And for that, we salute you, Karen. Thank you.
I love these raccoon dogs. They are a symbol of resistance. They are a symbol of... They are anarchists. I love them.
I know. I love them too. There are so many more pictures I was going to send you, but then eventually this podcast would just be, if someone's listening to it, they're like, it's just listening to Hannah laugh at pictures that I can't see. But for the video people, maybe we should just do like a cool slideshow at the end of the episode with just balls nonstop. Just
balls on balls on balls.
I'm just going to send you this one last one.
Okay. I want as many as you have, but
I know there are a lot. But this is the last one. This is the one from the Edo period, and it's just them like at the gym.
They're like weightlifting their.
it's leg day with balls.
It's leg day. They're weightlifting their own balls.
Okay, Eileen, I'm sorry. Just one more. This is the last one. This is the last one.
Okay, what's going on right here? Okay.
It's the shop signs. They don't have shop signs, so then they're just standing above the shop, and their balls are the signs. Yeah.
They're this is absurd. I think this is my favorite one that you've done. I think...
Don't thank me. Thank Karen.
I know, but you delivered it. Thank you, Karen.
That was... I had so much fun researching this. This is so great. And honestly, that article is fantastic. Like, it was such a great... it just contextualized it so wonderfully, and I really appreciated it.
Thanks, Karen.
Yeah. Anyway, so that takes us
Kaveh.
to where we need to...
So funny.
Yeah. I knew you were going to love it. I knew you were going to have a meltdown.
I loved it.